Welcome back to Rad City Resin, where you get a new resin tutorial every week. This week, I'm making dragon wings. I'm going to take you through the process from beginning to end, so let's make some magic. I'm going to start by drawing a wing on a piece of cardstock paper. I'm going to start with a sort of S shape that has a sharp arch here at the top, and then kind of a little hook sort of thing down here at the bottom. I know those are such technical terms, but stick with me here. I'll make 2 dots off to the side here, then draw a little slope that hits right in the center where the first 2 lines meet. Next, I'm gonna draw a curved line to connect each of these lines. I like to redraw these every time I make a new pendant because then they're all slightly different from each other. I wanna make sure that this is as original as possible. So me drawing it ahead of time ensures that it's never gonna be exactly the same as something someone else drew. I'm gonna refine these lines until I'm happy with the shape. Now you don't necessarily need to start with this drawing. You could freehand it, but I like to kind of envision the shape first before I get going. Next, I'm gonna cut a piece of this wire. I'm using an 18 gauge square wire, but really any wire will work here. I just wanna make sure that it's kind of sturdy. We're kind of gonna make an armature piece here, and I'm gonna use various round items from my desk to bend the wire into the right shape to fit each of these lines. Some popular choices in this household are bottles, markers, random pieces of plastic, or even my fingers. So I'm just trimming each piece of wire to fit the line that I drew. I used to try to shape one long piece of wire into the right shape, but it was really too difficult to keep the wire from getting kinked or bending out of shape. You know, when I was working on one spot, the rest of it would just be, completely mangled. I tend to be a little bit conservative when I'm trimming the wire because I don't want to trim the wire too short. You can always cut off more if you need to make it fit better, but once it's gone, it's gone. Once I have all of these pieces trimmed to the right size, I'll go ahead and lay them out on top of a transparent silicone pad that's laid over the drawing. I'm going to put a little drop of UV resin at the corner of each join to weld them together. And I like to cure after each corner to make sure that nothing shifts out of shape. If I try to do this all at once, I might bump it and then suddenly everything's curing and it's not all touching in the right spot. I only want these little drops to be in the corners, and I don't want it to spread too far in just yet. This is an excellent time to trim away any excess wire that doesn't need to be there. If you're dreaming up a pair of wings yourself, go hit that subscribe button. I have a bunch of projects that would make for an awesome craft party for you and your friends, so make sure you share this video with them and get to planning. Now it's time to make it magical. I have this cellophane bag that I bought from a craft store. I actually bought 2 of them and I still haven't even put a dent in the first one. I'm gonna use this little blade from a paper trimmer and cut out a square to use for my project. I'll lay the wire frame on top of that piece of cellophane. Then I'm gonna fill the wire frame with resin, holding it down if necessary. I'm going to use my dotting tool to push the resin into each corner. It's okay if it leaks out a little bit right now, because we're gonna sand it all down later. I'm gonna cure this for at least 2 minutes to make sure it's nice and solid. Now, I'm gonna turn it over and coat the back as well. Again, if a little goes beyond the frame, that's totally okay. Let's cure it again. Now, I'm gonna trim away as much of this cellophane as possible. Because I coated the front and the back, it's going to be kind of hard to do this with just the snip scissors, but that's okay because I'm gonna sand it all down later. I like to add a little splash of alcohol ink to give some color variation. I think it really adds to the fantastical nature of a dragon wing. And also I just really like playing with colors. Today, I'm gonna go for magenta and emerald from Picasso alcohol inks. Those will definitely be linked down in the description. This is going to look really cool layered over the cellophane. So I'm dropping this directly onto the cured resin. You could drop it into uncured resin if you wanted the colors to swirl together, but I want them to meet, but I want to be in control of where and how. There's a ton of other things that you could do here instead. I think like the bubble technique would be really cool here. It would make it look like dragon scales. I think that'd be pretty neat. So if you try that, let me know because I'm dying to see what that would look like. I'm gonna add a little shimmer using Baltic Day Chameleon powder because I love a little razzle dazzle and this color is so pretty. My husband laughs and teases me every time he hears me say razzle dazzle in my videos. It's basically an inside joke at this point. Comment below if you and your loved ones have an inside joke that crack you up. I think inside jokes are the best love language. Anyway, I'm gonna seal the color and mica with a flood of UV resin. I'm going to do this a few times, curing between each layer because I want to build my piece up to make it a bit more dimensional. I want it to feel like a solid, weighty pendant. I also want to add a little bit of a buffer, so I'm going to add layers to the back as well and all along all of the edges. I have to go kind of slow here because I don't want it spilling over the edge. I could sand it down later, but that would take even longer if there's resin drips everywhere. And also I just don't want to make a huge mess out of resin. Once I feel like everything is nice and solid, I'm going to sand away all of the excess resin. This part is super messy and I need to make sure I'm protecting my hands, my eyes, and my mouth. So 3 G's, gloves, glasses, gas mask. Normally I would take this outside, but it's incredibly hot and humid in Central Florida and I live in basically a swamp. So I decided to try and build a little sanding booth out of a plastic shoebox and some clear plastic packaging material. I turned the plastic onto its side, then taped the plastic to the top, then left the rest to dangle over the edge, acting like a shield for the dust. I put my piece inside and then I sanded every angle. I'm using my trusty Ryobi rotary tool with a 180 grit sanding disc to make sure any excess resin and cellophane are removed. I could have used sandpaper or even a nail file. Both of those work perfectly fine, just takes a little longer, but nothing works as quickly or as smoothly as this baby. I'm aiming to clear off any resin that's on the outer frame so that copper can shine through. The wire originally had kind of a dark brassy finish to it, and sanding definitely scrubbed all of that away, but I actually really love how this looks against the deep colors of the wing. It's like a little pop of vibrancy. You know, this sanding booth worked surprisingly well. I'm definitely going to add it to any future projects. It was the perfect size for my desk, although I might get some flexible plastic sheeting for the front, but overall it did exactly what it was supposed to do. Alright, so I rinsed it off in some water to clear away any bits of dust still clinging to it, and now it's all sanded and ready for a final shine. I dried it really well, and now I'm going to add one final layer of resin to the front and then cure. I forgot to film it, but I did the exact same thing to the back. My original design for this piece was to turn it into a necklace pendant, so I used my other rotary tool fitted with a small diamond bit to put a hole at the top. Then I used some leftover wire from earlier to create a bail. I wrapped the wire around my dotting tool to create a spiral, then used my flush cutters to snip down the middle, creating perfect little rings. I fit one of those rings into the hole at the top, and there it is. I love how this piece turned out. The colors, the shape, the weight, it all feels super luxe. The colors are so beautiful and vibrant that it just feels really mystical and exactly like the fantasy wing that I was going for. If you had fun today, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It really helps to push my videos out to even more folks. Thanks again for hanging out, and I'll see you again next week. And as always, stay rad. If you liked this project, I have a whole playlist of other projects to try out. Click here.